Does state try to do something about it?
I'm gonna hate myself for saying this. People are very special beings, so to speak. We think we own this. We do not own this, we are a part of this.
What will be your advices to the people who are ready to contribute for the environment?
Be active, do something, and then share it.
Hello everybody, I am Aleksandra, your personal green advisor. Welcome to my channel, the place where together with my guests we are here to expand your knowledge in ecology and environmental issues and show the way how you can make a difference. And together with me today we have Thor Morante, good friend of mine from Peru, communication specialist and environmental journalist in the past, lead coordinator on GameON project, working on awareness-raising activities on climate change. Welcome, Thor. Thank you for participating today with us on our interview. So tell me a little bit more about Peru, and especially what is the current ecological situation there, and what are the main environmental problems in that region?
In a nutshell, Peru, super nice country. I would love for any viewer of this to actually visit it. Very rich country regarding its biodiversity because we do have different kind of ecosystems.
Yeah, I read that Peru is one of the richest in terms of biodiversity country in the world.
Yes.
And the Amazon River is taking its start in Peru.
In Peru, indeed, pretty much in the central southern part of the Andes. Mm-hmm. And then it starts going north throughout the territory up until the northeastern part of the Amazon of Peru, and then it just starts going into Brazil up until it obviously ends up in the Atlantic. So yes, the Amazon is a source of richness in the country, natural richness, also economical richness. So many people depend on it. Mm-hmm. It is a very complex country regarding its geography because it starts in the coast right next to the Pacific, and then it just goes up into the Andes and then goes back down again in the Amazon. Very complex regarding its different climates. Andes, Amazon, and coast have different kind of moments throughout the year. That also allow you a super nice productivity in agricultural ways. Mm-hmm. And yes, also this super diverse geography allows us to have so much richness regarding the biodiversity we have. As you well mentioned, there are areas of Peru, especially one area called, a region called Madre de Dios, that it's translated into English, Mother of God. We have a very deep Christian influence in the country. It is one of the most mega diverse spots in the country, especially one of the protected areas there that is called Sonene. There are lots of things there, lots of people who depend on it, and that is pretty much Peru in a nutshell. Obviously, as you were digging into, we do have the environmental issues, and with lots of richness, it usually comes lots of conflicts also, of whom and how they want to reach those richness. One of the biggest problems of Peru actually relates to social environmental conflicts.
Can you a little bit tell us what is it about?
Not it. We have over 150 ongoing social environmental conflicts. Most of our social conflicts, most of them, not all, are related to environmental issues. Whether there is a mining project that wants to exploit any of the resources in the area, whether it is in the Amazon or in the Andes. We also have projects for oil extraction and so on and so forth. And usually these projects, such as a mining extraction project, means that there will be an environmental impact, and most of the people living in the Andes, or they work in agriculture, therefore you have a mine, therefore you have water pollution, then you have an impact in their source of income. While in the Amazon, you are not really affecting things as agriculture, but you are affecting the biodiversity there, and you have several kinds of populations, whether they are natives or they are sort of we call them in Spanish colonizers, because they were moving within the country itself to colonize new areas, but they weren't naturally native to that specific part of the Amazon. But you do affect their hunting practices, their fishing practices, and pretty much their livelihood. You have the difficulties of the geography in order to have proper contact with the different kinds of populations. If you want to go and visit, for instance, a group of an ethnicity called the Matses, they are very close in the border to Brazil, in the northern part of Peru, and to get them, you can only go there by boat through the rivers, and it can take you 5 days to arrive from the nearest town or the nearest city. So you have these things that are very complicated, that do not really allow you to have a real synergy or interaction with these populations that are, in this case, Peruvians themselves, but are simply outside of the system for several reasons, among which is the issue of the communications to do that. One of the things that allow for Peru to have this wonderful natural richness, it is also a big handicap because of how fragmented the country ends up being due to this very difficult geography. It's beautiful to have it, but on the social side, it fragments it, it isolates it, and then conflicts arise because people not having the contact with the state and with the rule of law, then they start doing as they please. And if I want to make a living by chopping trees and doing some deforestation and selling it in the black market, then I enter the territory of these Matses that are 5 days away, nobody reaches them, and then you have these problems of killing environmentalist leaders that are trying to help the issue. That is pretty much the easy, simple explanation of these problems.
When we were preparing for the interview, you also told me that one of the main issues now in Peru is illegal gold mining due to the increase in the price of gold on the world market.
Yeah.
So why people are doing this illegally now in Peru? Why is it's easier, and what are the dangers behind this for the environment?
I mean, it is not a recent thing. It dates back to the late 70s, early 80s, but you pretty much hit the bullseye when you mentioned the increase in the gold price. Because it had been done, it was wrong, because you have the environmental impact, because it is an artisanal way of doing it. There are no health, safety related issues. The miners working there, they handle the mercury with their bare hands, and we know what the effects of mercury in health are.
Why do you use mercury for which part of the process?
When they are trying to get the gold, they do riverine extraction from the rivers. So in order to separate the gold from the other minerals, they have to handle the mercury there in order to perform the separation. So to get the, how do you call it, the small stones, the super tiny stones of gold. That is a natural process. You, generally speaking, need to handle the mercury, but you shouldn't be handling anymore as you were doing it 100, 200, 300 years ago, because then you have mercury poison. Brings a lot of illnesses. But since this is informal mining, illegal mining, it is not something they are considering. It's something that came from the 70s, 80s, when the gold price went to the rooftop, then it became the thing to be done. And in the Amazon, with no presence of law enforcement, of whether it is the police or the military, people just go there and you're in the middle of nowhere, and then you start extracting the gold. And for that, you need to deforest. And deforest is only the first problem, because since you are handling the mercury manually, then you are also throwing the mercury to the rivers and to the soils, and therefore polluting the source of water, therefore polluting the fish. And the fish might not die instantly, but then who consumes the fish? The rest of the native populations. So you start seeing that the problem that is happening in this small spot of the Amazon, it starts to poison and infest all the surrounding areas. With the illegal gold mining, you have this huge depredation of the Amazon on the biodiversity level, but you also have these impacts on health issues. Then who works in the mines? They are usually people that are exploited. They usually earn very good money, but they, especially when you compare it to the living standards of Peru.
But are they aware of the dangers of their own work conditions?
There is a degree of awareness, because you see the effects of your work when you start having health issues. When I say that they earn more than the others, why are they not working in other issues that are not illegal, that are not affecting them because of what they earn? But then you have the second part of the problem, that is they have to live in these mining camps. And therefore they tend to spend all the money in the mining camps, in the bars, owned by the one who is leading the whole mining operation, in the brothels. And that comes another problem, that is women trafficking and women labor, and also child labor. There is forced prostitution happening, including children prostitution. And you have all these social problems, and you have like this pot that it's ever exploding. So everyone is affected. You can try to analyze who is affected the most: the miner, the enslaved children, the enslaved adult women.
The population living around and eating fish with mercury or drinking mercury water.
It is a horrible problem.
Does state try to do something about it, and what are their measures in trying to prevent, or they are closing the mines, they are trying to catch this illegal mining, or what are the measures?
So this takes us back to the very beginning of the complexity of the Peruvian geography, how difficult it is for the state to be present in order to be able to control, to stop human trafficking, to stop child labor, to stop all these illegal mining issues that are poisoning the Amazon, are poisoning the waters, are poisoning the fish. So here and then they do have interventions. They bring the Navy that enters the Amazon, and they go by boat and by planes, and they destroy the machinery. They try to arrest people. Then you can say, like, okay, whom are they arresting? Are they arresting the miners? The miners are themselves, most of them, victims too of a system of oppression.
I was listening to the interview of one of the miner of this gold mine while he was arrested, and he said he was basically the person from the local population telling that, but what can I do? I don't have anything else, because that's my only source of living, only source of getting money for my family.
Yeah.
Because the mining is happening on the territory where I live.
Yeah. And obviously one could try to analyze from this position in itself, sitting down very comfortably with your living conditions covered and everything, and analyze it. Oh, you're an adult, you have to take responsibility of your actions, what you were doing is illegal. But this is a social problem that it's pretty much engraved in the rupture of the social tissue of the country, that is the access to opportunities. If I cannot find a source of income, what are my options? I could go from the ethical perspective, that is like to try to make a living in the streets by washing cars or selling candy or whatever. Or it's like, hey, here you have an opportunity, work in the mine, you will earn 2, 3, 4 times more than what you would earn in a normal job with the minimum basic income, and you can support your family, etc., etc. And there is no problem. Okay, but this is illegal. Yeah, but the state, what has the state done for you?
But that's my next question. Don't you think that increasing environmental awareness about the topic will be better solution in these terms? Like providing by the state information for the people, how dangerous is it and what are the tools which will be possible to implement to decrease the risks?
So look, I'm gonna hate myself for saying this. In a place where your priority is to first find something to eat that day, when you are literally surviving the day-to-day basis, environmental awareness is something that you don't care about. Because today I am seeing on how do I bring food to the table of my family. You can see it on a day-to-day basis, and when you see people living literally in the coast, in straw huts, in the middle of the desert, without access to water, without access to electricity, without access to a road or to anything. When you see people in the city, in every traffic light, asking you for money. When you see poverty in its most raw form, added to that, then you see extreme poverty, and you understand that people, their first concern is how I put food in my mouth today. It is very difficult. I don't think that impossible, but extremely difficult to tell them like, oh, but how about if in your consideration to put mouth in your stomach, you also think about the environment? No, I need to eat. And if I have to chop this tree and kill 100 species in the middle of the Amazon because of that, I have to eat. You need to first address the issue of access to well-being. That is the general problem of the developing world. I believe that there is obviously an individual responsibility that every person, every adult at least, needs to take in the struggle to handle climate change. But I do think that there is a bigger responsibility, a need for action from the decision makers to say, as a law from now on, just in the same way that you are not allowed to murder a person, if not you go to jail. I am sorry if this sounds politically incorrect, but as a law, you have to segregate. You cannot be chopping trees. In the same way that in these countries you cannot be hunting bears because you are protecting biodiversity, and if you hunt a bear in Romania, you are fined with around 50,000 euro. You need to start imposing, because you also have cultural habits that are very hard to change, and they are not very easy to be changed simply by sitting down and talking to you about the pros and cons of what you're doing. But if I tell you, if you keep on doing this, if you keep on hunting the bear, the next bear that you will hunt, I will put you in jail, or I will fine you with 50,000, and I will coactively get that money from you, then you will not hunt a bear. At the same time, it would be very beautiful if I tell you, why shouldn't you be hunting that bear? I mean, but some people, due to the way society is constructed and segregated and has all these levels of access to well-being and education, for some people, no matter how many times you try to positively, nicely, friendly speak with them, if they don't want to, they don't want to. I mean, people are very special beings, so to speak.
Why you decided to go into the environmental communication?
I mean, I think it was more of a path. The environmental love, or the love in order for the environment to protect it, it comes from my father. My father was involved in non-paid way with one of the natural protected areas near the farm. And he was there the president of the committee of civilians for years, and we were always going there during the weekends to make activities to raise funds in order to help the natural protected area improve, etc. So pretty much that was the kind of nurturing my sisters and I had. How I became an environmental journalist, I think that was pretty much spontaneous, because I studied literature. I wanted to be a writer. So my interest in journalism was I want to practice or experiment journalistic kind of writing. And when I got a job at News Weekly there as an intern, the editor of the area said like, oh, isn't your father the one that works in the natural protected area, da-da-da? And I said like, yes, then you know a lot of environmental issues. And I was like, no, I mean, I was 18 or 19 back then. So, but according to him, it's like, he knows, you know, it's like apparently it's transmitted through genes, I don't know. So
but did your father teach you something about related to sustainability and environmental problems?
Yes, but my father wasn't an environmentalist per se, in the sense that he hadn't studied any sort of environmental related sciences. He was a farmer. That he simply loved nature. That's why he got involved with this protected area. He was more of a pragmatic environmentalist and not someone who had all the theoretical background. He had learned a lot throughout the years, but we also need to realize that back in the day, and I am speaking about the end of the 80s, early 90s, while in some other countries you were already speaking about climate change and renewable energies, in countries such as Peru, that was going out of a huge crisis, social crisis, because we had been living in terrorism and we had had a huge economic crisis, topics as climate change, as renewables, as recycling were like of no concern for the population. Therefore, the little things you could know about nature were things that in the global north had already been talked about and discussed probably back in the 70s. So we were way behind what needed to be done back then.
So can you tell me, what is environmental journalism or environmental communication? What is the difference, and why difference from the journalism at all?
Journalism is a part or a way of doing communications. It is encapsulated there, but journalism, it's, I wouldn't say an art in itself, but it has its own codes. Journalism in itself is the search for information and the presentation of this information. Being objective or being neutral, it's impossible. That should be your ideal, but it's impossible. Nevertheless, that is what you're striving to do. So a journalist is meant to inform on the sites. That doesn't mean that if you are, in the case of an environmental journalist, an oil tycoon that it's polluting the rivers, and then you have the local population being affected, I will not present the news in the sense of like, oh, we are being affected by this, our children are dying because of the oil pollution, and then I interview you and you say, no, I follow all the protocols and this oil pollution cannot be done by us, but it's coming from this tube pipe of yours that has your logo and that is broken, and it's like, oh, we have gone through all the inspections and according to law there is no problem. And then I present the news. They say that their children are dying. Well, she says that they are meeting all the certificates and regulations. That is your news. No, I mean, you also have a mission to tell you to not only inform deeper, but tell you like, hey, I do not know if I can say this, stop bullshitting me, you are polluting the thing. The fact that you have a certificate and that the one that gives you the certificate either didn't see this or saw it and decided to not put you a fine or whatever it is, doesn't mean that you are not responsible. Why are you not wanting to take responsibility? That is, you need to confront as a journalist. You cannot be so silly and have this wishful thinking, okay, I interview the two sides, and now I present the two sides of opinion, and then reader have your own view. No, you are also aiming ideally for a sense of justice, for a sense of ethical communications in journalism. You are wanting not simply to expose you just for the sake of like, I exposed you, but it's like, I want either you or the ones who can put pressure on you, the Minister of the Environment, to do something. So that is the sense. Communications is you are more focused on what are you trying to represent? A private company, an NGO, a public company. What am I doing in environmental communications? Oh, I represent an NGO, therefore I am interested in communicating the projects I am doing. What am I working in? In biodiversity conservation, in climate action, in water protection. Okay, how? With a project, with policy making. Okay, what are the ways to better promote the latest project activity that I did? Oh, I organized a wilderness camp, or I want to organize a wilderness camp. What is the best way to communicate this to recruit people to come and join? So you can be have a nice approach, like, oh, I want to do good for the environment from an environmental NGO. You can be actually the environmental communicator of the oil company that was polluting the river, and while you are polluting the river, you, the tycoon, the environmental communicator, we just received this ISO 9001 certificate that matches that we are an environmentally friendly company, you know, and you make this show, you make your whatever flash mobs or conferences, and portray yourself that you are meeting all the CSR for all your investors. So you might be an environmental communicator, and you're not lying, because you're actually promoting, you received an ISO 9001, you know, or 14001. But are you trying to really do something nice? No, this is more for the image of the company. The one for the NGO is more for like the implementation of their projects or the awareness raising of the policy that it's burning, you know? From the public sector, you want to promote the things that the public sector does. You know, oh, the Ministry of the Environment just did this program in the middle of the Tatras, you know, to save them. You know, we are very good. Vote again for the same government. That's pretty much the concept. So I would like to think idealistically that the environmental communicator should also be driven by a sense of ethics, but it really depends on where you work. And perhaps the environmental communicator of the oil company, it's a very ethical person, has a very sustainable livelihood, take 3-minute showers, all his or her lighting in the house is LEDs, you know, A+++ kind of energy consumption, drives a bike every day to work. Maybe that person actually goes to climate strikes, you know. But that person also knows that that the oil company, even if it's one that is not having any kind of spills, okay, even then, that is a kind of human activity that is bringing a huge impact in situ and a huge impact in its ramification on what is being done with the product being produced by that company. But we cannot be simply stating, you call yourself an environmentalist, then why do you work for an oil company? I think that any person who works in one way or another in the field of trying to promote and raise awareness on the importance of environmental things has a thing to say. I cannot say all of them, but I would say like perhaps the big majority, they actually believe in that. And they actually believe that they are putting their grain of sand in the bigger picture.
What was your personal experience with the communication and environmentalists? Like, what are the most exciting parts about this job and the most difficult parts?
Okay, my personal experience, I like what I do because for me this matters. I used to be only an environmental journalist, then I wanted to even go beyond environmental communications and not only do that, but also work in implementation of projects. This is something that no matter how cliche it sounds, it is crucial. If I do it, it's not because it's like, oh, I didn't find anything else to do in my life, so why not? This is something that is important. It should matter not only to me, but to everyone. Therefore, perhaps the most frustrating part is when you clash with walls. And the walls is in individuals. I mean, for instance, this just happened yesterday. We are organizing tomorrow a climate picnic in a festival, and we are promoting it. And within social media, in between the likes, the comments, the shares, etc., you also found the people who don't like it, you know? And it's a climate picnic to share with you what is climate change and to try to depict what is your eco-anxiety, what are your hopes, and then this person comes and bullshit. And it's like, what is the necessity? Okay, if you actually think it is bullshit, then why do you have to bluntly express it and portray yourself as like, I am the enemy of this kind of topic and this kind of movement? That is frustrating because then you say like, okay, what do I do here? Should I tell her, do you think that? Then why don't you come to the climate picnic and we can perhaps have a nice debate about it? But then what will find? You will find a troll. No, why will I waste my time for that? Etc. of insults, you know, or whatever. I think that is the frustrating part. The frustrating part is the real stubbornness of some people. And it is not that they are uninformed. It is because they are most of the time misinformed. And misinformation in the world of and the era of fake news is something very difficult to tackle, to deal with.
Currently, there is this term happening which called Ecoanxiety.
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 Yeah.
Ecoanxiety. Which means to get a depression or bad feelings about the climate-related topics.
Yeah.
So my question is, how to deliver anything connected to the ecology and not put the people into depression, or not to make them feel that that's their fault, or not make them start being aggressive about the topic? Because if you say person like, hey, it's your fault, you are polluting the rivers, you are throwing out the waste.
No, and put you the pressure. You have to turn off the light in your house, your shower should take 1-2 minutes. You are the responsible one.
Then there will be two different reactions. It's either aggressiveness and like, go to hell, I don't care, or the person will start to feel guilty and bad and depressed. And so what is your advice?
Communications-wise, and this is something that they realized a few years ago, is like, from the very beginning, environmental communications had always been very negative. Oh, the world is ending. Oh, you know, it's like people are dying, the floods are coming, etc., you know? And they realized a little bit late that when you portray the whole message in a negative way, that is like, we are all doomed, the reaction of the people, and also in an imperative way, you have to stop eating meat, you know, only vegetables from now, or whatever. People, as you will say, react aggressively of like, okay, or they react anxiously. They can also react of like, oh, all is lost. then
there
why?
Is nothing to do already.
Exactly. So one of the things, and this relates a lot to social behavior and human behavior, tends to go in line with what we call hope. If we have hope that this can be addressed, that this can be solved, that your action alone will not change the world, but your action and his action and her action and their action can altogether make a difference, because those actions on the personal level then allow to give pressure to the decision makers that are simply interested in getting in keeping their wealth and their jobs. But it's like, oh, the way is like everyone is doing this, everyone is thinking this. If I am to be re-elected, I have to change my discourse, and it's no longer oil extraction but this. It is not as simple as that. Obviously, this is a very simplified way. But regarding raising awareness, you have to bring the concept of hope. You have to bring the concept of the good things that have been achieved, because there have been good news achieved. For the first time, the European buffalo once again roaming in Bulgaria and in Romania, because of years of work to pretty much first in a reduced, confined place, to repopulate them and then to throw them back in the wild. And all the ecosystem services that putting the European buffalo in the wild again gives you, regarding how when the buffalo starts like doing this in the soil, because they are going to fight between each other, between the two males to see who gets the female or whatever. By doing that, they are removing the soil, they are removing the nutrients, and therefore allowing for biodiversity to grow there, and etc. And then life comes back. You throw a wild mammal, a big wild mammal back in it, and it comes with a lot of things coming back with it. I think that urbanization, or the concept of civilization, has brought with us also a lie in the sense that we think we own this. We do not own this, we are a part of this.
Mm-hmm. So then the next question of mine, what will be your advices to the people who are ready to contribute for the environment, who are ready to do something about the environment? That they want to call themselves environmental friendly or eco-friendly or sustainable. They don't want to feel guilty about their own actions, and they are really ready to do something, but they don't know how. What will be your advice?
You need to push forward and be active. There is a lot of environmental activism currently ongoing, a lot of climate activism. I think that the first thing that one should be aware of doing is get informed. There are lots of sources out there. Learn to filter, learn to analyze, learn to contrast the information, so to be properly aware of what are the problems, what are the challenges, but also what are the potential solutions. And with that information, start you yourself having an outreach, capitalizing in that information to impact others. Nowadays, I have to admit, I am super happy to see this youth strong movement making use of social media channels. We know that social media channels are super dangerous because they are also a source of misinformation. But the way the climate movements and the youth climate movements particularly are making use of them is how these tools should be used. Contact your local climate movement or your national climate movement. I am sure you have one, and if you don't have one, start your own. It is not an easy path, but it is a path that can bring you a lot of satisfaction on the personal egocentric level, but a sense of fruition of making something that it's worth your time, worth your salvation, worth all of this, worth a living. Do not be scared when you mention eco-anxiety. Face it and what can you do about it? Be active. You do not need to be the flag bearer or the torch bearer of all the environmental and climate related messages. Focus on the one that it's easier for you to learn or the one that interests you more. Focus on water protection, or focus on family garden in the roof of your house, or there is a plethora of possibilities. Be active, do something, and then share it.
Thank you very much for this very interesting conversation.
Thanks to you.
It
for
was
the
a
opportunity.
really pleasure.
Thank you very much to you, and I hope that just people start entering more into this issue.
I hope so. I really hope so.